So this is what we're covering today. We're going to talk about marketing channels that are commonly used by small businesses and how relevant they are to your business, how relevant they can be to your business. We're going to explore quickly the differences between websites, landing pages, and apps from a marketing perspective, and then discuss how well-designed landing pages can be used to actually help you to generate leads and traffic. And then thirdly, we're going to discuss what you can focus on now in view of the situation we're in. Just a practical discussion on what we can do now to generate results that we want. So, yes. So before we start, if I could ask Sue, I do know what you do. Andre, is that Andre? If you could maybe key in the chat box and let me know what business you're in, that would be really helpful. So I'll go ahead while Andre is typing in a chat box. So there are all these channels, marketing channels that are commonly used. Obviously, I'm not covering them all. Things such as the more traditional channels, such as the radio, magazine ads, even writing a book is considered a marketing tool nowadays. I'm not covering that, but instead, I'll try to cover the marketing channels that are measurable, if that makes sense, that can allow you to track results more easily. And I'll go on and talk about each and every one of them. And if you do have any questions or any information on any of these specific marketing channels, please do let me know in the chat box. I'll do my best to try and cover your questions in the Q&A. Okay, so moving on, we have obviously the website. Almost every business would have a website, and the purpose of a website is really for searchability, for people to be able to find you if they don't know your business, or if they haven't heard of you. Then you want to have a website effectively to be searchable, so that people can find you and get information about your business from the website. Secondly, we have local SEO. Local SEO is a Google My Business account, which is a free service available to every business on this planet. And it's a free service that Google offers, which allows you to effectively set up a shop front to the rest of the world, so to speak, so that you can be more searchable and visible in the locations where you want to be operating your business. So the word location is quite key here in Google My Business. So I would encourage, if you do not have an account with Google My Business, I would encourage that you open an account. It's for free. Number three, we have landing pages. These are essentially a web page, much like a web page on your website, with a specific call to action. So these are very targeted. You can say they are more lead generation or sales focused web pages that ask the visitor to take one action, and usually one action only on that web page. We have number four, which is email marketing, which we are quite familiar with. And the purpose of email marketing is, of course, to nurture your audience, the people that you have had contact with, hopefully. We're not talking about spamming here, but really we're talking about people that you've made some sort of contact with, in which you put them on your mailing list so you could nurture them and offer value to them. Number five, we have social media. So you have the various platforms, the purpose of which is to really engage and interact with your followers. Number six, mobile apps. Mobile applications for businesses. These, the strongest point, or the biggest benefit of a mobile app for business is push notifications, in my opinion, because this then allows you to laser target your communication or your message to that specific segment of the audience, if that makes sense. So the purpose of a mobile app is really to engage with your audience. And then we have online reviews, which are your social proof. So as you know, people would buy from you, even though they may not have contacted you directly, but people have higher tendency to buy from you if their friends or family or colleagues have given you a good review. So that's really important. And again, I'll go back to Google. Google does offer online reviews as well, and I would encourage you to look into that, because the more Google reviews that you have, obviously the more searchable you are, and it helps with your search rankings as well on Google. And how do you set up Google reviews? On Google My Business account. So on Google My Business, there is a feature which allows you to ask people to invite them to give you a review. And again, that's all free. Number 8, we have paid advertising. So Google pay-per-click has been around for more than 10 years now. All these are your sponsored ads, which you can pay or bid for clicks from people searching for your product or service. Can get a bit expensive with Google nowadays. The cheaper, shall we say, the cheaper form of advertising could be on Facebook, just depending on the audience which you have. I'm not saying, it's for everyone, but for certain products and services, Facebook advertising does tremendously well. Same with Instagram as well, and recently YouTube as well, YouTube advertising. Moving on to number 9, which is chatbots. Chatbots, we are familiar with seeing chatbots on websites, which acts more as a salesperson for you. So chatbots are quite effective as the first point of contact for anyone who's landed on your website, for example, or even landed on your Facebook account. You can use the Facebook chatbot messenger, and that's called ManyChat. So these are pretty effective sales tools, whereby you can try and you can use the chatbot to anticipate the sort of questions that people will ask you. And they're quite standard questions when someone initially lands on your website or checks out your Facebook page. So it's actually quite useful, I would say, to use a chatbot to help you with your sales and your marketing. So that's messenger marketing. The tool to use, as I mentioned, for chatbot for Facebook is ManyChat. And ManyChat is quite intuitive to use in that it allows you to set up a conversation flow, directing the user to various areas of your website or downloads as well. So it's quite a useful tool to try out if you haven't already. And number 10, speaking. Speaking is a good, effective tool for marketing, which is what I'm doing now effectively. Offering training, webinars, or even making a speech on a stage as well. So these are effective. That's an effective marketing tool. Number 11, collaborations. I thought I mentioned collaborations, especially in a time like this. It's quite useful to be able to find compatible brands or compatible businesses that are not too different from you, and also in terms of business life cycle, not too far away from you. And find these brands, people to work with, who is able to offer non-competitive complementary services to yours, and tie up with them, collaborate with them. And more importantly, these collaborators, people that you collaborate with, these brands that you work with, they typically have relatively similar customer profiles. So you could sort of cross-sell your services to each other's audiences. So that is quite a useful marketing channel, especially right now. I think in a time like this, it's quite a cost-effective way to enlarge your audience, shall we say, by offering cross-selling services to different sets of audiences. And lastly, last but not least, let's not forget the print marketing, which is traditionally your flyers, your direct mail, and also attending events, speaking at events, or participating in exhibitions and networking. Obviously, this particular channel has to be scaled down in a time like this while we're still in lockdown. But I have to say that channels such as print channels such as printing flyers, direct mail, they're tried and tested traditional ways of marketing. Might cost you a little bit of money, but still cost effective. So moving on to the next slide. Now, this is a similar slide, but the only difference is I have indicated which of the marketing channels that we covered are lead generation in nature, meaning they are there for you to generate traffic or potential leads or customers. And N stands for nurture. So the channels that I've marked N for nurture is more channels which will help you to deepen your relationship with your prospects, if that makes sense, your prospects and your customers as well. So I've indicated the channels and what they do. Now, why is this important? These channels are important for me to highlight because in terms of marketing, in terms of consumer behavior, it's important to understand that marketing as we see today is so different from marketing 10 years ago or 20 years ago, definitely 5-10 years ago, in the sense that people now expect a business to have multiple touch points or multiple channels. And that's really, really key in terms of the way consumers, and all of us are consumers, find your business. So multiple touch points would require you to explore multiple channels in your marketing. And this is especially so for Generation X customers, or the millennials. Millennials are people, as we know, from about late 30s onwards, right up to late 40s. These are your millennials. Generation X customers as well, they do sort of mirror customer behavior. And obviously the younger generation, Gen Z as well. So multiple touch points and multiple channels is important. Now, which channels do you use as a business? Well, this really depends on where your audience hangs out. So an understanding of the type of customers or audience that you have is important. I'm not saying to have to try every single channel. That wouldn't be possible if we have limited resources. So it depends on your budget, whether you have a team in place to help you with that, or do you outsource your marketing, and also your disposition as well. Some people may not, introverted people or business owners may not necessarily want to do a Facebook Live 3 times a day. It's not really what they do, which is fine. So I think there are several factors here in play which will help you to decide which channels are really going to serve you. And also the stage of the business you're at, whether you're a startup. If you're a startup, then obviously you want to focus a lot of your energies on generating more leads, generating more business. The hard work is in generating business and leads right at the beginning. Whereas if you're a more mature business, then you might want to spend less time generating leads, and perhaps more time upselling or nurturing your existing customers. So really depends on these factors. And also the other thing I want to say is there is a term called search marketing versus interruption marketing. And search marketing is intentional marketing. So some of these channels, such as your website, is search marketing, because people who search for you do have an intention to buy. And social media, for example, is interruption marketing, which obviously you want to stop the scroll. So you do want to catch people's attention. So the tactics that you use in interruption marketing is a little bit different from search marketing, which is very much intentional. Interruption marketing, well, you're basically stopping the scroll, as I mentioned, and quite often can involve tactics which are very creative. Surprise element is there in order to get people to stop and think about what you have to tell them. So the messaging is key here. and you're also trying to soft sell in your social media as well. So I would say, talking about search and interruption marketing and talking about lead generation and nurture tactics or marketing channels, I would say for a business to consider marketing channels, have a bit of both search and interruption marketing tactics if you can. And not just focus on one particular channel, because as we know, that doesn't work anymore for today's consumer. You'd be required to have multiple channels if you're trying to generate leads. Obviously, if you're a well-established business, you already have your own clientele, you don't need to generate any more leads, then this wouldn't really apply to you. So again, I'll say, look at your audience, see where they hang out, focus on a few channels, test your message and content. Always test your messages and test your content with your audience. And this could mean you may have several audiences, not just one, depending on where they are, and have a plan and track your results, ideally on a monthly basis. If you could, at this point, if you could let me know in the chat box, if you can, which of these channels have you had success with? And also, which of these channels do you need help with most, perhaps? That would be great. Let me see if I can find you in the chat. All right, okay. So Andre says he's a software as a service business. Fantastic. Not tried any channels yet, just starting out. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Andre. And Sue says, I'm more successful face-to-face, but concentrating on LinkedIn at the moment. Perfect. Okay. So you're trying out, so you're concentrating on social media. Okay. That's great. Thank you for that. So moving on to the next slide. Right, websites versus landing pages versus mobile apps. I'm going to touch a little bit on the differences between these three marketing tools. So I'm going to run through quite quickly. Do stop me and ask me a question in the chat box if I'm running through too quickly, or if there's something that you're not clear with. So the differences between these three marketing channels: websites are more for information gathering, and therefore lead generation purposes. Simply because it's a tool for intentional marketing. As I mentioned earlier, people do often find you when they have a thought, an idea in their head, and they search for your product or service. So it's fantastic for people doing research, lead generation. Landing pages are more campaign-driven web pages, and I'll show you the difference between website and landing pages in the next slide. So landing pages are web pages, exactly like your website, but more campaign-driven, more focused on sales, and more focused on call to action. Apps are more for customer engagement. Mobile apps are more nurturing your customers. If you remember in the slide before, they're more for people who already have a following or a customer base, and they want to engage and interact with these customers or following on a much deeper level. And therefore, apps are great at building loyalty and ultimately increasing repeat sales. Right. So definition of landing page from HubSpot, which is a marketing CRM software company. HubSpot defines a landing page as a web page designed to capture a contact's information in exchange for an offer, like an ebook, a template, or a video. So it can also be in exchange for more information through a demo, a meeting, or over the phone consultation. So ultimately, the aim of a landing page is conversion. So whether this is to convert brand new visitors to your web page to become your followers, or simply for them to collect information, or for you as a business to collect information about the visitor, again, in exchange for something that you offer the visitor. So websites are equivalent to your business showcase, and the landing page is more the offer that you have, specific offer that you want to present to your visitors with a call to action. So examples of campaign-driven landing pages. So in exchange, so I mentioned earlier, in exchange for information that you give to the visitor coming to your web page, you collect their data, name, email addresses. These are the most common bits of information that you would collect. So the aim is to make it easy for them to give you information without getting them to fill in 10-page forms, which will put people off, but just a very simple data collection mechanism. In exchange, you could give them an ebook or a PDF to download with valuable tips or advice or information that you could give for free. Or online course enrollment. If you have an event that you're organizing and you want people to sign up for it, so you can set up a landing page explaining what course is about, why they should attend, and capturing their data that way. Oh, sorry, that was for event registration. So online course enrollment is similar, in a similar fashion. So if they want to enroll in your online course, you then ask them to fill in a form with their details so that they can get access into the online course. Also, it could be for community membership. So if you want people to join your Facebook group, this is one way of doing it, through a landing page that you could set up explaining the benefits of joining the Facebook group on that landing page. And then finally, there will be a click through, a button which says join my Facebook group, which will then take them straight to the Facebook group. And quite commonly, software companies, people who build apps would use a landing page to encourage app downloads as well. This is because apps are not very searchable on Google, especially if you have a native Apple app that you've built. It will not be searchable on Google. So it's not the usual way for people to find your app. So one way of counteracting that is, when you try to launch your app, is to set up a landing page which is searchable on Google that people can search for, and you can attach a landing page onto your email as well, telling people that you have a new app and they could download it on the landing page. So setting up your Google and Apple Apple App Store buttons there for people to download. So these are the ways you can use a landing page. Just to give you an example of a landing page, I'm just going to share another page here. Right, so yeah, so can you see this landing page? So this is an example of a well-designed landing page. You can see that there are no top menu or site navigation buttons on the landing page. It's just a very simple, clean design without any navigation to distract the visitor. And that's really important because you want the visitor to just focus on the message there. And the message in this case is showing a list of speakers with their profiles, inviting people to attend a webinar in exchange for the information that you collect on the webinar. So that's a simple example, I would say, a well-designed landing page. Okay, so going on to the next slide. Right, so next slide, apps. Moving on to apps. Are they for your business? What are they for? I mean, where do they fit in terms of your marketing? I think the two key ingredients to note here before any business would decide whether an app is suitable for them or not. So from a marketer's point of view, in order for an app to be successful, in getting downloads. A business would ideally need to have two ingredients. One is content. So the business would need to have content that they could regularly put up there on the app, content that they can refresh on the app, so that that will give people an owners or a reason to come and revisit the app. That's really key. And the second ingredient is community. What do I mean by that? Community means you typically would have a following or a customer base already in place for you to interact with and deepen relationships with. And that's where an app can come into play. And that's where you can start to get app downloads more easily. Obviously, I'm not talking about business models such as Uber, whose business model is purely the app itself. It's a purely online model. I'm talking about apps for traditional businesses and also businesses with a bricks and clicks business model, meaning to say that businesses that have a mix of offline and a mix of online channels. Now, this is typically businesses such as yours and mine. So not talking about unicorns of this world. There aren't that many, and therefore I feel it's not practical to discuss that. So businesses like such as yours and mine with a bit of offline, a bit of online element to it. And I'm talking about B2C type businesses as well. Although this can also apply to business type models, it just depends. For example, business apps could effectively be used for your sales force as a way to allow your sales force to access information data quickly. So that's one way of using an app for a B2B model. So in short, an app can be a powerful marketing tool if you meet the two criteria, which is content and community. It can be a powerful marketing tool for your business when your business increasingly relies on millennial, Generation X, Generation Z customers buying from you whilst they are on the go. And as you can see with the web traffic that's coming to mobile devices nowadays, it's ever on the increase over the last 5 years. So increasingly more and more people do use search on their mobile phones, mobile devices to access businesses. So that's quite key. And that's where an app can come into play because it offers more convenience in terms of buying and in terms of accessing information via an app. Okay, so what's your marketing going to look like in 2020? Right. So what to focus on? I think if for a business with a limited budget, I think there are a couple of things here that I want to touch on, which I hope will be really helpful and perhaps provide some food for thought. If you have a limited budget now for this year, and in view of the circumstances we're in, we've all had to sort of rethink the way we market to people, the way we find new businesses and new customers. So I would say, first thing, lead generation. Don't stop building and offering value to your audience. Continuing offering value to them, but perhaps using more online channels rather than offline channels. So a story that I'm going to tell you now, my story, for example, when we had the lockdown started, I started building relationships with a new set of audience rather than, going back to the old ways, which I couldn't, which is networking. So I used to do networking face to face every week. I think Sue knows what I'm talking about, meeting people, striking up relationships and nurturing that. So I had to stop all that and I had to rethink how I'd market and how I'd get new customers. So what I've done is I have started a series of webinars since the end of March through meetups. So creating webinars, meetups, offering my knowledge, my skills and experience, help and support to small businesses. And I offered this for free from March till now, and I'm still doing it. So which is a great way for me to nurture relationships with new businesses. Sometimes businesses that I wouldn't otherwise be able to meet. So online is a great way of doing it. And obviously to host an event would cost a lot of money in London, anywhere in London or in Kingston. But to host a webinar is virtually free. So it's a really cost-effective way of generating leads and offering value to your audience. Secondly, support. With our existing customers, obviously, we need to communicate and offer support to our customers where needed, where it's relevant. An example to give would be a local restaurant whom I know. They're based in Kingston. Obviously, they're shut now during the lockdown period. They couldn't operate, and they were in the past, they used to offer experiential dining. So they would just have people come in. They don't do deliveries at all. You just have to come in, book a table and come in and experience what it was like being in a restaurant. So since the lockdown, they have started offering gin tasting sessions, for example, and they also gin tasting sessions to the local crowd, local customers, which I thought was an absolutely fantastic idea. So what they do is they have a webinar, a gin tasting webinar, and prior to that you have to put in your orders. You will have to pay, of course, online, and they will then deliver the gin to you before the webinar. So I thought that was a brilliant idea. And also Toastmasters Clubs are a prime example. I'm a member of Toastmasters. And these clubs used to be very, very local in that the members who would come and visit these Toastmasters meetings are local, they work locally or they live locally. So since the lockdown, Toastmasters had to move online very quickly in order not to lose their existing membership. If they stop these meetings, then members would stop coming and stop paying their dues. So they moved to webinars, online Zoom webinars very quickly, and in doing so managed to keep their memberships. So members did not leave Toastmasters, and this was a way for Toastmasters to allow existing members to practice public speaking at the same time. And because of that, because they've gone online very quickly, Toastmaster clubs, these local clubs now are able to attract people from all over the world, which is amazing to watch. The people from India have checked in on Toastmaster sessions, people from all over Europe and America as well. So these are two examples to show that we can continue to offer support to customers online during this time. Campaign driven. You could offer your service or product package for an online audience during this time. But I have a campaign goal in mind when you do that. When you try and move online, have a goal in mind. Usually this would involve time saving, an idea that you can put forward to your audience that they could save time with your product or service. You could offer convenience to your audience, or you could impart your knowledge. So I think the three things which we as consumers are attracted to are wealth. How can this product or service make me richer? Relationships, how can it improve my relationships with the people around me, and how can it improve my health? So these are the three things that typically consumers would want to buy into. Again, I'll give you an example. As an example of a Qigong teacher, for example, teaches Qigong. This teacher would used to charge £10 per person per class in a room, a maximum of 20 people per class in a room. So that would be £200 per class for this Qigong teacher. Obviously now during the lockdown, he couldn't do that. He now offers Qigong classes online via Zoom. And instead of charging £10 per person, he charges £5 per person. But guess what? He now has 100 people from all over the world attending his Qigong classes. So that's fantastic. So he now has created a larger audience he otherwise wouldn't have created, wouldn't have had he continued with his face-to-face classes. Now, I'm not saying that it is easy to suddenly get 100 people from all over the world to attend your class. But what I'm saying is when you move some of your business online, it has the potential for you to reach out to a much greater audience, which you otherwise wouldn't have reached. So how would he achieve that? Let's just explore that a little bit. So in order for this Qigong teacher to achieve the campaign goal, assuming the campaign goal for him was to reach 100 people, to get 100 people to sign up. So assuming he has that goal of 100 people signing up in his virtual class without spending more money than he has already, he would need to resort to a combination of marketing channels to achieve that. So this would most definitely have to involve lead generation channels. For example, he would have used he could have used a website, optimized it so that he gets traffic from all over the world to his website. And to sign up for his class, or he could have had a YouTube channel which he set up demonstrating what he does in his classes. YouTube would be a fantastic channel for him, I envisage. I am just discussing possible channels with him. He's not someone that I know personally, but this is what he probably would have done if he wanted to generate more leads and get 100 people to come to his virtual classes. So YouTube channel is fantastic for that. It is also a search channel. YouTube is a search channel for video. So it's very effective in that. He may have an email list to nurture the people or the customers that he already has, enticing his existing customers to come back to his class, which he's charging at half the price of what he used to. He could have been holding free speaking or training events, perhaps even conducted a Zoom webinar, a taster class for people to come and visit to see what he does in his classes and to inspire them to join. So that's another lead generation channel there. So multiple channels, as I was saying. I think the key to all of that is to focus on a few channels that you feel may be able to work for your business. Focus on them, to test them constantly, check in every month to see what the results are of your test, and then to tweak it as you go along in order to find the right message for the audience that you want to be attracting. So the messaging is important.